a very good evening and a very warm welcome to today's session. I hope you guys are doing absolutely fine and amazingly well, taking good care of yourselves and your loved ones. And I also hope that you've had a wonderful weekend. Let's get started with today's session. And today's topic is going to be the new castes and the hierarchies that were coming in and coming up in the medieval India, okay, during that portion, during the medieval period. So I've already explained to you in the previous session what do we mean by medieval. Let's start on that note. Before we begin, let me quickly introduce myself. Hi everyone, मेरा नाम अंकना है and I'm your expert for social sciences at Embibe. As you can see, I have been associated with the field of education for more than 9 years now, and I come and I have had a wonderful opportunity to interact and teach students both offline and online for CBSE and ICSE from 6th to 10th onwards. And I have done my studies in the field of humanities and I specialize in English as well as social science. Now talking about the chapter is the tribes, nomads and settled communities. We have already done one session last week wherein we discussed the tribal societies and life of the nomads in medieval India. Today we are going to talk about the new castes and hierarchies that came up, and then we'll also refer to one of them, the Gonds in the medieval India. This is going to be our topic for today. Okay? So let's get started. Look at the concepts that we'll be discussing. Concepts, you might see a big list, but the topics are not very big and very confusing. It's pretty easy to understand. We'll understand about how did the jatis, the castes emerged in medieval time, the rise of Rajput clan, rejection of caste system by the tribes. So we've already understood what do you mean by the tribal system, how their culture are, where do they stay, how do they identify. We'll do a recap also. Okay? Then how assimilation of the tribes and caste system happened. Then we'll look at the Gonds, the structure of their society, their administrative system, the changes in their society that happened in the medieval period, and then the Gond kingdom at Garha Katanga. ठीक है, कतंगा. तो यहाँ से शुरू करते हैं. Let's get started. We'll have a quick recap. Also, please make sure that you have informed your friends that we have already started with the session. हमने session शुरू कर दिया है ताकि वो मिस ना कर जाएं ये सेशन. ये चैप्टर थोड़ा डिटेल्ड है और मतलब इट्स नॉट समथिंग दैट वी टॉक अबाउट वेरी फ्रीक्वेंटली एंड गेट टू नो अबाउट, रीड अबाउट, हियर अबाउट. So there would be a lot of information or there might be a lot of things that you have not really come across. इनके बारे में आपने ज़्यादा पढ़ा नहीं है, सुना नहीं है, तो वैसी सारी चीज़ें हो सकती हैं. इसलिए अपने दोस्तों को इन्फॉर्म ज़रूर कर देंगे आप कि वो जल्दी से आ जाए और सेशन ज्वाइन कर ले. ठीक है, that I've started. So we'll start with a quick recap, but before that I quickly want to go ahead and say hi to all my dear lovely students who are over here. Hi Shan, very good evening. Welcome to the session. Sonali, very good evening बच्चे. Guys, if you have not written hi, bye, whatever in the chat, please make sure to do that so that I can say hi to you, address you and welcome you to the session. Who else? और किसने किसने मैसेज किया? चलो देखते हैं. तो शान को विश कर दिया मैंने, सोनाली को I have wished, and and then okay, अर्निका, हाय, गुड इवनिंग बच्चे, वेरी वार्म वेलकम. अर्निका का भी मैसेज आया हुआ है हमें. और किसने किसने चैट में मैसेज किया है? ठीक है, बाकी जिन बच्चों ने नहीं किया है कर दो, सो दैट आई एम एबल टू से हाय टू यू एज आई सेड, राइट. हाय मानसवी, गुड इवनिंग. अडलीब, हाय बच्चे. हाय उज्जवल. Okay, let's start with a quick recap. Recap के साथ शुरू करते हैं so that we are able to form connection between what is happening today and what we have done in the previous session. Just in case if you did not attend or it's been a while that you attended the session, तो हम recap करेंगे. सबसे पहले हमने समझा बच्चे, medieval India is basically, I told you right, history has been divided based upon certain events and occurrences. जब कोई बड़ा event होता है, ठीक है, जैसे कि जब टेक्नोलॉजी की डेवलपमेंट हुई, व्हेन इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन स्टार्टेड हैपनिंग, इंपीरियलिज्म स्टार्टेड हैपनिंग, बिग इवेंट्स व्हिच चेंज द हिस्ट्री, द कोर्स ऑफ हिस्ट्री, दैट हैज बीन आइडेंटिफाइड एज मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री बिकॉज मॉडर्नाइजेशन हो गई. ठीक है, उसके पहले वाला जो पीरियड है वो मेडिवल पीरियड कहलाता है एंड उससे पहले वाला पीरियड एंशिएंट पीरियड कहलाता है. तो वी आर राइट नाउ रेफरिंग टू द मेडिवल हिस्ट्री पीरियड, एंड इन दैट मेडिवल इंडिया, in that medieval history period, what was happening in India is referred to as medieval India. So medieval India में during, you can say, when the Delhi Sultanate, when the Mughals, all of these rules, all of these people were there, what was happening will be referred to as medieval India. So medieval India में हमने देखा कि कई तरह की diverse societies exist किया करती थी. There were a lot of people, lot of different things, very much, very diverse, very different, practicing it all together. और उसी वक्त ट्राइबल ग्रुप्स का हमने देखा एग्जिस्ट करना एट द सेम टाइम. It's not like they did not exist before or they did not exist after. They definitely existed, but during this period, why we are specifically talking about them? Because around the medieval period and before the medieval period, tribal people actually had their own kingdoms, maybe small, their own areas of ruling based on their culture, the way they administer, but it existed. But after the Mughals came in, a lot of those areas were taken away. After the Delhi Sultanate started, a lot of those areas were taken away. So the transition that happened and the shifting and the whole uprooting of their civilizations, of their settlements, that is what we discussed in this session, right? तो हमने देखा कि tribal groups जो हैं, who are tribal people? They are mostly the people who have this culture. They don't follow any religion, ठीक है, वो किसी धर्म को follow नहीं करते हैं. Their belief basically lies in worshipping of the nature. So they're very close to nature. Their culture, their tradition is very integrated with the nature. That is why a lot of times, and most of the times, they even prefer staying closer to the nature. तो वो nature के पास रहना भी चाहते हैं. That is why we'll find a lot of tribal settlements, especially in old times, where modernization as such had not started. Usually around in and around the jungles and forests. So वो usually या तो जंगल में ही मिलेंगे या जंगल के आसपास मिलेंगे, ऐसा हुआ करता था. They did not have any hierarchical system per se, which means there was no order of ranking, okay? Like this is the ruler, this is the minister, these are the citizens, these are the slaves. ऐसा कुछ system नहीं था. Everyone used to stay together and they were bounded by kinship, relations, friendships and relations. रिश्तों से जुड़े हुए थे एक दूसरे के साथ किसी ना किसी relation के साथ रहते थे. And all of these people were related to each other. Now for their livelihood, what kind of work did they used to do in order to earn money, in order to survive? They would always be associated with things that were practiced in capacity of interacting with nature. तो हमेशा कुछ ऐसा ही काम करते थे और ट्रेडिशंस सब कुछ ऐसा था जो नेचर से जुड़ा हुआ था. फॉर एग्जाम्पल एग्रीकल्चर, हर्डिंग, पैस्टरलिज्म प्रैक्टिस करना, hunting related activities karna, and all of this would be in remote areas because normally they would be closer to the natural vegetation जहाँ पे जंगल झाड़ ये सारी चीज़ें हो और वहाँ ज़्यादातर लोग जल्दी नहीं रहते थे क्योंकि जानवर भी बहुत सारे मिलते थे. So it was not very safe back at that time. Now they always had conflicts with the caste-based societies. As I told you that there was no hierarchy in their own society. उनके अपने society में, उनके अपने आप कह सकते हो कि clan में, अपने group में there was no hierarchical system. There was no order of ranking. तो जहाँ पे ये वर्णा system शुरू हो गया, जहाँ पे the caste system was defined for us that the Brahmins will be on the top, followed by the Kshatriyas. ये वाले system से they did not used to really resonate. They did not understood this. They did not understand this and they did not even agree of it because there was a certain discrimination that this involved. The Banjaras, one of the tribes that we spoke about. So we read about various tribes and where do you find them, how they practice pastoralism, which is breeding and rearing animals and then doing trade by the products that you receive from the animals. And in order to get those products, you have to keep them healthy. So you'll always be on the move, not settle down so that they can keep finding fresh, lustrous green grass and good food, which is nutritious for them. So the Banjaras was one of those groups that we read about. The pivotal trader nomads, which means they were traders also, they were nomads also. They were the people who did not form settlements. They would constantly be on the move. And while moving, whatever products they produced from their animals, they would trade it or they would buy something in one place where it was cheaper and go somewhere else and trade it where it was being sold for higher prices. ऐसे सारे practices किया करते थे, goods को transport करते थे because they were on the move. One way of earning they also realized was that they can use their animals to put the load of goods that they were carrying on their backs and carry it from one point to the other, acting as a transportation system. So they would move the goods from one place to another. They even supported the armies. They were called upon by a lot of rulers for the same purpose. While nomadic pastoralists, they traded and roamed with animals, exchanging products with the settled agriculturalists. Then we read about the itinerant groups, which were somewhere between, anywhere from peddlers to entertainers. They traveled practicing crafts and traders in the villages. So a lot of times even you might have come across a group of people who are not settled. You can look at them and realize that they are on the move. They're nomadic in nature. And they'll perform all of these kinds of, daring, adventurous acts of walking on a rope, picking the needle from the eyelashes. So these are also some nomadic groups who would earn their livelihood by keep performing these activities to entertain other people. Do tribes were divided into different groups, example Banjaras and etc. Sonali, there were different kinds of tribes, right? How were they different? Staying in different areas, depending on different kind of seasons, rearing different animals, along with just being a tribal group, practicing some other occupation. That is how different groups were divided, because they were slightly different from the other. Their core belief of being closer to the nature, worshipping the nature, being blessed by the nature, all of these things were similar. But their lifestyle, the practices that they used to go ahead with to earn their livelihood, these things were different slightly from each other. And that is why you will find different groups. For example, the ones staying in the mountains, they would have a different lifestyle compared to the ones staying in the desert, compared to the ones staying in the plateaus. So, ऐसे करके अलग-अलग तरह के groups थे, ठीक है? These groups, however, all the members of the groups were similar. Then their cyclical visits and nomadic lifestyles reflected a complex interdependence with settled societies, influencing economic activities and cultural dynamics throughout the medieval India. So this is what we did in the previous session. Let's get started with today's session. Is our society the same as it was 100 years ago? क्या कहते हो? अगर मैं आपसे ये सवाल पूछूं, if I go ahead and ask this question to you, कि बच्चों क्या लगता है आपको, हमारी सोसाइटी जो 100 साल पहले हुआ करती थी, एक सेंचुरी पहले हुआ करती थी, जो 1923 में हुआ करती थी, क्या वही आज भी है? जो 1823 में हुआ करती थी, क्या वो 2023 में भी है? What would you say? Not so much, right? We have seen the changes happening. We have witnessed the changes happening ourselves. हम सब ने खुद ने इतने सारे बदलाव को आते हुए देखा है, in terms of technology, in terms of connection, in terms of globalization, in terms of lifestyle of people, the work profiles and occupations that people are following, बहुत ज़्यादा बदलाव हो गया है education system में, belief में, है ना? So of course not. Be it for good or for worse, चाहे अच्छे के लिए हो या बुरे, we have seen that things have been changing, people, technology, all of this, and change has only been the only constant. It has been the biggest part of our history, and that is why we also go back and learn how things used to be, which it is not anymore. क्या बदलाव आ गया है, क्या shift आ गया है, has it helped us, has it not helped us? We go back and read all of those things, right? So come, let's also understand the shift from tribal living into more complex social forms led to the emergence of the new castes and hierarchies. So how did this hierarchies, the order of ranking and everything happen? That. So सबसे पहले बात करते हैं the emergence of the jatis, the castes, the various castes that we have existing. How did they start emerging in the medieval India? ठीक है, medieval India में हमारे कैसे नई जातियां आ रही थी, क्या उसके पीछे का रीजन था, क्या सिस्टम था, क्या नई सिस्टम ऑर्गेनाइज हो रही थी. सो वी सी दैट द इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ एंड सोसाइटल नीड्स लेड टू द क्रिएशन ऑफ स्मॉलर कास्ट और जातीज विद इन द वर्नास. सो बच्चे देखो, व्हेन यू लुक एट द वर्ना सिस्टम, ठीक है, व्हेन यू लुक एट दिस एज अ सिस्टम, दिस हैज एग्जिस्टेड फॉर अ वेरी लॉन्ग पीरियड ऑफ टाइम. इट्स नॉट जस्ट द मेडिवल टाइम दैट इट स्टार्टेड, इट वाज काइंड ऑफ ड्यूरिंग द एंशिएंट पीरियड आल्सो. And it was completely occupation based. So there were majorly 4 varnas. You had the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas and the Shudras. ठीक है, अब क्या है, अब when you talk to people in India especially, and the ones following the Hindu religion, but here even the Islamic religion followers have the caste system. When you talk to them, they will tell you, oh, we belong to this particular caste, which means even the Brahmins further had a lot of division. Someone was a higher Brahmin, someone was a lower Brahmin. Even between the Kshatriyas, there was a certain division. Okay? Between the Vaishyas, there was certain division. Between the Shudras, there were certain divisions. And that is why we have lot of people, right? There's so many castes that you may not even be aware of. Okay? Despite of the fact that you may belong to the same varna, you may belong to the same segment, like you may belong to the Kshatriya varna, you may belong to a Brahmana varna, but despite of belonging to the same varna, you may meet people from the same varna, same originally the same basic segment of Brahman, Kshatriya, whatever, but they would probably be describing their caste slightly different, their rank slightly different, right? Why? So how did these new segregations, these new segmentations, ये नए नए पड़ाव, ये नए नए बदलाव, ये छोटे छोटे ग्रुप्स और कैसे आए? It happened during this period of medieval India. ठीक है? Ananya, hi, welcome to this session. And what were the factors that led to this? So बच्चे, सबसे पहले we have to understand the factor that led to this. सबसे पहले we have to understand the factor based on which the Varna system was designed. Varna system was simply designed based on the jobs, the nature of jobs people used to do. People who were involved with religious things, with teaching, etc., were given the rank of the Brahmins. Whereas the people who were the soldiers, the rulers, the fighters were given that of the Kshatriyas. The traders, the merchants, the shopkeepers, people involved in all of these things were given the Vaishyas. The ones doing the basic cleaning, washing, cutting hair, they were given the Shudras. So it was based on the nature of the job. So it was basically an occupational division that was done. Based on क्या काम करते हो आप, किस तरीके का काम करते हो, आप लोगों को पढ़ाते हो, पूजा करते हो तो आप ब्राह्मण बन जाओगे, लड़ाई करते हो, देश की प्रोटेक्शन करते हो तो आप क्षत्रिय बन जाओगे, अगर आप ट्रेडिंग वगैरह में हो, बिजनेसमैन हो, ठीक है, तो आप मर्चेंट हो, तो आप प्रोडक्शन करते हो, तो ऐसे सारी चीज़ों में आप वैश्य बन जाओगे. अगर आप सफाई का काम कर रहे हो, गंदगी हटा रहे हो, ठीक है, गंदगी को साफ कर रहे हो, लोगों के बाल काट रहे हो, ऐसे सारे लोगों को जो है बार्बर वगैरह उस वक्त शूद्रा बन जाते थे. ठीक है. And as I told you, people of course who used to do the worshipping, but also the teachers, because back at that time people who had the knowledge of Sanskrit could only read the books. So the scholars, the people who were reading the books and doing all the traditional, performing all the traditional worshipping and all of these rituals that we had, people who would educate others, all of them were qualified into Brahmanas. Okay? Once this Varna system was there, going forward, of course, society further changed. There were more educated people. Despite of being from different segments, they still were getting education. People were changing their jobs. Anyone who was, let's say, whose father earlier probably was doing some other job may not necessarily have done the same job. Maybe a farmer's child may not have done farming necessarily, may have gone to be a soldier, for example, let's just say. तो ऐसे क्या हो रहा था, थोड़ा jobs change हो रहा था, income was changing, so economical status was changing. So people were emerging as new groups with new identities, and these were the factors which further led to the division of within the varnas. इसकी वजह से अब नए नए कास्ट बनने लग गए सेम वर्ण के अंदर भी. ठीक है. So as we see, new castes emerged with brahmanas and other varnas focusing on specialized skills. So if you're doing something specifically, that particular caste will become will come out. For example, if you were if you were associated with building furniture, you were a carpenter, then you would be qualified into the I think Badahi or some caste is there. So for example, that would be your qualification. Okay, if you were if you were a barber cutting hair and something, then a particular caste would be assigned to you. So it became more on the special skills, specific jobs that you were performing and how were you earning based on it. But the system was not very popular initially. Okay, pehle Varna system, the broader system is what people know, right? Hi CP Bishnoi, good evening, welcome to the session. So pehle log broader division jante the. Slowly the smaller divisions started even within the broader divisions to happen. And then it started being very dominant, very visible in the society. बहुत ज़्यादा उभर के आने लग गया. The primary basis of this was to organize the society and superseding the Varna system. So people wanted to first carry forward the Varna system, but now based on the new castes that were emerged, they wanted to rearrange the society and a little different from how this Varna system earlier used to exist. So the so you see, right, the castes were not formed in a day. The caste system was not formed in a day. In fact, whatever system was even formed in the ancient India, for example, or during the times of the Vedas, उसमें ही वहाँ पे बहुत कुछ लिखा हुआ है. ऐसे करके जो भी changes हो रहे थे वो gradually, one thing got formed for few once and then remained for few years or centuries, so to say, and then based on the development and the changes in the society, the requirement of the people, the leaders, the people who were kind of ruling over the society, they started making few more shifts, and that is how we have ultimately come to this place where we are today, where we see all of these divisions constantly working. The Uyakondan Udayar inscription in Tamil Nadu showed Brahmanas deliberating on the status of the Rathkaras, which is chariot makers. Chariot makers, who are chariot makers, which is chariot kya hota hai? So you might have seen kings and queens traveling on this very, very luxurious vehicle, right? जिसे रथ कहते हैं हिंदी में. In Hindi we call it रथ. That is why they are also called Rathkaras. So there were a lot of Brahmins who actually used to build these chariots, these raths. ठीक है, ये जो रथ होता था, the traveling vehicle for the kings, queens back at that time, which was also used in wars or for them otherwise to in general travel, commute from one place to other. इन्होंने बोला inscription में, यहाँ पे हमारे तमिलनाडु में inscription है. Inscription क्या होता है? What do you understand by inscription? It is written. It's a written document. So this written document, which is your Uyakondan Udayar, this Uyakondan Udayar tells us about, ये जो document है ये हमें बताती है तमिलनाडु में, that there were few Brahmins who deliberated on the status of Rathkaras. They wanted to and they assumed, they took, ठीक है, they became the Rathkaras. और ये वो लोग थे जो रथ बनाया करते थे, जो ये chariots बनाया करते थे, the carrier of the king and the queen, the very fancy big vehicle which would probably be drawn by some animals. तो ये Rathkaras होते थे. Outlining their occupation related to architecture, chariot building, temple construction. So people who were now associated with these things, they started calling themselves Rathkaras, and they defined their skill set. And you can clearly see that this division is simply based on the skills, the work, the occupation that you perform. ठीक है? कोई बात नहीं दिया, वेलकम टू द सेशन, नो वरीज. आप बाकी जो छूट गया है वो बाद में देख लेना, ठीक है. हाय बबलू मिश्रा, गुड इवनिंग. सो दे वर वेरी डोमिनेंट, और ये डॉक्यूमेंट हमें बताती है कि ब्राह्मण्स में कुछ सेक्शन जो थे जो रथकारास बनना चाहते थे, दे वर ऑलवेज रिलेटेड टू बीइंग एन आर्किटेक्ट ऑफ द टेम्पल और हाउसेज और सिटी, और बिल्ड टेम्पल, डू द कंस्ट्रक्शन प्लानिंग एंड बेसिक वर्क रिलेटेड टू द टेम्पल और द रथ्स. दे वर द कंस्ट्रक्टर्स, यू कैन से. ठीक है. Then rise of Rajputs की अगर बात करें, so of course earlier what we had were the Kshatriyas. अब कौन आ रहे हैं? अब राजपूत आ रहे हैं. अब हम उन्हें राजपूत कह रहे हैं. बेसिकली they were pretty much the same, but now further specific एक बहुत concentrated change आ रहा है, एक concentrated term आ रहा है, एक specific term आ रहा है. राजपूत की बात करें तो राजपूत क्लैन का कैसे राइज होता है मेडिवल इंडिया में? So around 11th 12th century, which is from 1000 to 1100 and 1101 to 1200 AD. इन सालों में क्या होता है? A lot of different Rajput clans such as the Hunas, Chandelas, Chalukyas, and all of these people gained power. So these are also few dynasties that we have heard about. ये कुछ ऐसे dynasties और groups भी हैं जिनके बारे में हमने dynastic rule के बारे में सुना है. That oh yes, the Chalukyas for example had a kingdom for instance, right? तो इनमें से कई सारे लोग जो हैं वो ट्राइबल ओरिजिन से आते थे और धीरे धीरे राजपूत्स में ट्रांसेंड कर गए. सो दे वर बेसिकली रूलर्स एज ट्राइबल्स इन द बिगिनिंग, देन दे स्टार्टेड रूलिंग सम अदर प्लेसेस. सो आई मीन यू कैन इमेजिन दैट दे वर फर्स्ट अ ट्राइबल सेटलमेंट, देन समबडी बिकेम अ रूलर, देन द रूलर इज ऑलवेज क्वालिफाइड एज अ क्षत्रिय फॉर एग्जाम्पल. वहाँ से फिर वो राजपूत क्लैन में अपने आप को आइडेंटिफाई करने लग गए. तो बेस्ड ऑन द वर्क, ऑन द हिस्ट्री, ऑन द ट्रांजिशन, वट एवर यू हैव मेड, यू वुड नाउ आइडेंटिफाई योर कास्ट एज और क्रिएट अ न्यू कास्ट फॉर. ठीक है मैम. एंड मेडिवल पीरियड हु वर मेकिंग द व्हीकल? बच्चे पहले तो वहाँ पे व्हीकल कौन सा था? इट वॉज नॉट फ्यूल रन व्हीकल. दैट टाइम इट वॉज नॉट डिस्कवर्ड एंड दैट टाइम इट वॉज नॉट इन्वेंटेड. तो हमारे पास गाड़ियाँ और ये सारी चीज़ें नहीं होती थी. इनफैक्ट साइकिल भी नहीं था. ठीक है, सॉरी साइकिल व्हील का हो चुका था इन्वेंशन. सो पीपल वर क्रिएटिंग रथ्स, दे वर क्रिएटिंग बेसिकली वैगन्स विच वर ड्रॉन बाय एनिमल्स, एंड वी रेड राइट दैट रथकारास वर डूइंग दैट. द ब्राह्मण्स, अ पर्टिकुलर सेगमेंट ऑफ ब्राह्मण्स वर डूइंग दैट. ठीक है. Now, some of these clans had the tribal origin. वहाँ से धीरे धीरे they became rulers and transformed into Rajput. They took that status for themselves. However, there were few people who replaced old rulers, especially in the areas where agriculture, farming used to happen, and created a powerful state out of it. So there were different areas. Not all the areas necessarily were in certain kingdoms. ठीक है, या कुछ छोटे किंगडम्स भी थे. So the people who had more power, they started creating their own army and conquering these places and taking under their kingdom and changing these and forming these into powerful kingdoms that people were aware about and people would look at. Okay. So on that note, let's quickly, good evening Bablu, can you answer this question for me in the chat? The dash developed from the Varna system, jatis, jobs or administration. Varna system से इनमें से क्या निकल करके आया? जाति आई, जॉब्स आई या एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन? The dash developed from the Varna system, jatis, jobs and administration, which means Varna system already existed. It further refined into this new system. What is it? Okay guys, let's look at your responses. Ananya, Andleeb, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, Dhanush, Gargi, you guys have answered absolutely correct and perfect timing, good job. Diya ne bhi sahi jawab diya hai, काफी जल्दी. Arnika, Anshika have taken a little slightly longer but answered correctly, wonderful. Sonali, Manasvi, Tanmay, they have taken an attempt. I'm glad about that. Akhil and Yatharth waiting for you guys to answer. But the new jatis came up from the old Varna system. Old Varna system bhi वैसे caste system ही था, but new caste, further division of the caste and more specific caste started coming up now, right? Now their rise set an example for tribal groups. When the new groups which had their descent from the tribals were changing into Rajputs, were now becoming rulers. It naturally was going to be a message. It was naturally going to inspire other people. जो same group के थे कि अरे ये कर सकते हैं, हम भी कर सकते हैं. अगर ये इस रास्ते जा रहे हैं तो we should also go ahead towards our progress. So they started setting an example for the tribal groups, inspiring them to actually become a part of the caste system. So guys, you have to remember here something, right? Akhil, correct. Jatis होंगी. कि tribals जो थे, the tribals that we read about yesterday, tribals did not have any hierarchy. Because they did not have any hierarchy, it also means that they had no divisions. Okay, there was no level, no division, everyone was together. And if there was no division, they used to stay very, very away from the caste system also, and they did not really appreciate the caste system. But there are certain Rajputs, there are certain tribal people who have now started walking down the path of being a part of the caste system because they were now trying to change and take up certain castes for themselves as their identity. Okay? Okay, thank you. I'm glad I pronounced your name correctly. So now because they were, few of the tribals were participating in this caste system, and especially the new caste system, you can say the new system that was coming up. Ultimately, you can say being a part of the Varna system. कहीं ना कहीं आप वो Varna system से जो जुड़ रहे थे, तो इसकी वजह से कुछ नए लोग भी inspiration ले रहे थे. Few others were also taking inspiration that hey, we can probably also take this up. It might be good for us. ठीक है? हाँ जी, सोनाली. कि ये मेरे लिए अच्छा हो सकता है, हम सबके लिए अच्छा हो सकता है, तो उसका हिस्सा बन जाते हैं. They were inspired and motivated in a positive way, right? Hi, Aman Kumar. But of course, only leading tribal families could join the ruling class. Others became a part of the lower jati. So you understand what is happening? If your job is something which is seen to be very reputed in the society, then you end up being of the high caste. For example, that of a teacher, that of a scholar, a priest, a ruler, a soldier. These jobs were taken to be very reputed, a high level job. ठीक है, ज़्यादा रिस्पेक्टेड जॉब्स, तो ऐसे लोगों को हाई कास्ट मिलता था. Whereas people who were doing some jobs like farming, a barber, a washerman, these things were not taken to be very reputed, very desired, very respectable jobs. ये सारी चीज़ों को उस तरीके से नहीं देखा जाता था, and hence इनको low जातीज में, low categories में define किया जाता था. So people who were practicing these kind of occupations would belong to the lower jatis. So even when the tribals were changing in their caste and were becoming a part of the caste system, जब ये tribals भी इस caste system का हिस्सा बनने लग गए, even in them occupation became a very important factor. Occupation was in fact the only factor. तो occupation यहाँ पे भी बहुत ज़्यादा consider करा जाने लग गया. People who were doing jobs which was reputed, like for example the leaders of these groups. हर जगह देखो leader तो होता है, अगर hierarchy system नहीं भी हुआ तो इन ट्राइबल ग्रुप्स के भी जो लीडर्स थे ना, वो भले राजपूत बन गए, लेकिन जो लीडर्स नहीं थे, एंड इवन इफ दे डिसाइडेड टू जॉइन द सिस्टम ऑफ द कास्ट, द प्रॉब्लम वुड बी. ओके अनन्या, गार्गी नहीं, क्लास 7th के लिए हर दिन क्लास नहीं होती है. ट्वाइस अ वीक विल डेफिनेटली हैपन, वंस और ट्वाइस अ वीक. ओके अमन, यू कैन ऑलवेज डू दैट. आपको डीएम बनना है तो आपको सोशल साइंस, थोड़ा जनरल साइंस का पेपर निकालने के लिए पढ़ना पड़ेगा, बट यू कैन फोकस ऑन साइंस एट द सेम टाइम. इट कैन बी योर ऑप्शनल सब्जेक्ट, वट एवर सब्जेक्ट एंड स्ट्रीम ऑफ साइंस यू लाइक, एंड दैट यू कैन ऑप्ट इन योर एग्जाम फॉर. सो इट्स नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम, आराम से पढ़ो. सो कमिंग बैक, the leaders would become the Rajput or the higher caste, but the other people doing other jobs not so much. उनके लिए ये बहुत हेल्पफुल नहीं रहता है. वो वापस इस कास्ट सिस्टम का हिस्सा बन करके इनफैक्ट लोअर कास्ट में, ठीक है, नीचे की तरफ जो है फंस जाते हैं, लोअर जाति में क्वालिफाई करने लग जाते हैं. ठीक है, सो वी सी अ लॉट ऑफ ट्राइब्स, स्पेशली इफ यू टॉक अबाउट द एरियाज ऑफ पंजाब, सिंध, नॉर्थ वेस्ट फ्रंटियर, they rejected the system. They said no, if it is going to demean us, ये अगर हमें नीचे लाके concentrate कर दे रहा है, हमें demean कर रहा है, हमारी respect नहीं दे रहा है society में, then why should we become a part of it? We would remain with our identity, as we will retain our identity of that of a tribal. We are very happy with it. We don't have to be ranked, we don't have to be judged, we don't have to be placed in a certain order. हम खुश हैं ऐसे. ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे क्या होता है, आप द ट्राइब्स इन दीज रीजन्स दे स्टार्टेड हैविंग वेरी अर्ली अडॉप्शन ऑफ इस्लाम. सो दिस इज ऑल्सो पीरियड बच्चों वेर अ लॉट ऑफ फॉरेन इन्वेडर्स आर कमिंग. बहुत सारे फॉरेन इन्वेडर्स आ रहे हैं. आप दिल्ली सल्तनत की बात करो, मुगल्स की बात करो, एंड मोस्ट ऑफ दीज रूलर्स और द इन्वेडर्स हैव कम अर्लियर ऑल्सो, ये ज़्यादातर नॉर्थ वेस्ट फ्रंटियर से आते थे. आपका पाकिस्तान जो प्रेजेंट एरिया है, हाँ जो प्रेजेंट लैंड है, और अफगानिस्तान, दे वुड एंटर फ्रॉम देयर. And from there when they came, if looking at the present India, Punjab, Sindh, Northwest, this was the area which they would conquer or enter into first. So they would leave a lot of impact because a lot of them at this point were foreign invaders who were practicing Islam. तो ये इस्लाम का कॉन्सेप्ट और उस रिलीजन का जो आइडिया है वो छोड़ कर जा रहे थे. बहुत सारे लोग उससे इंस्पायर हो रहे थे. इट मेड सेंस टू देम. सो लॉट ऑफ ट्राइब्स विच वॉज इन फैक्ट ओवर देयर, it started adopting this new religion that was being introduced to them, continued to resist the unequal social order prescribed by the orthodox Hinduism. तो ये जो बिल्कुल ट्रेडिशनल, ठीक है, the old system of orthodox was there, they started not being a part of it and they saw as an alternative Islam, because Islam did not have a caste system. Originally Islam did not have a caste system that is being practiced in other places. India में अब इस्लाम में भी caste system आ गया. ठीक है, अवंतिका, hi, good evening. So the rejection of the system was in fact in a lot of these areas because they had an alternative, even if they wanted. See, tribal people did not really प्रैक्टिस एनी रिलीजन, तो अगर उन्हें रिलीजन प्रैक्टिस भी करना है तो अब उनके पास एक ऑल्टरनेटिव रिलीजन है इस्लाम का, जहाँ पे अब उन्हें ये कास्ट सिस्टम फॉलो नहीं करना पड़ेगा. एंड ऑल्सो लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स हैड अ लॉट ऑफ because of a lot of cultural differences, people who are practicing certain thing in the Bengal region would not completely associate with the Punjab region, would not completely associate with the northwest frontier. तो ऐसे कई सारे differences रहते थे, culture में difference था, belief system में difference था, lifestyle में difference था. For all of these reasons they felt we don't want to be a part of this, religion practice भी करना है तो we will take up Islam, हम इस्लाम को कबूल कर लेंगे, है ना. शिवम मिश्रा, गुड इवनिंग, वेलकम टू दिस सेशन. ठीक है. अनन्या, हु डिड बैड बिहेवियर? आप किसकी बात कर रहे हो, किसने बैड बिहेवियर किया है? Now talking about the assimilation of the tribes in the caste system in medieval India. Now we have already seen that when these rulers of tribal clans were changing into the Rajputas, they were being supported by the Brahmanas. Brahmins बहुत आराम से support कर रहे थे कि हाँ ये conversion कर दो, you change into Hindu follower, you take up this caste, you're the ruler, you will be a Rajput. So ब्राह्मण तो बड़ा खुल करके सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, ठीक है. So with the support of the Brahmanas, it was inspired by the rise of Rajputs. Several tribes joined the caste system. So because few people did become the ruler, Brahmins were in support of it. People started taking, looking after and following the steps of what the others had done. कुछ जो लोगों ने कर लिया था हिंदुइज्म को फॉलो करना चालू, कास्ट सिस्टम का हिस्सा बन गए थे, ब्राह्मण्स भी सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, मोटिवेट कर रहे हैं, तो ये भी अब कन्वर्ट कर रहे हैं, ये भी अब इसका हिस्सा बन रहे हैं. बट मोस्ट ऑफ द ट्राइब्स दे वर इंटीग्रेटेड इनटू लोअर जातीज, जैसे मैंने बताया, क्योंकि एवरीवन वाज नॉट अ रूलर एंड दे वर मोस्टली डूइंग जॉब्स ऑफ सेलिंग समथिंग एंड एटसेट्रा, ठीक है, हर्डिंग, फार्मिंग, तो ये सारे ऑक्यूपेशंस को बहुत रिस्पेक्ट से नहीं देखते थे, तो उनको लोअर जाति में डाल दिया गया और वो रूलिंग क्लास का स्टेटस नहीं अटेन कर पाए, राजपूत नहीं बन पाए, ठीक है. Okay, Shivam. I am glad you did. Welcome to the session. Ananya, that's what I'm asking. I did not understand your question. Who are they in your question? You're saying, ma'am, but they do bad behavior with us. So I'm asking, who are you talking about? Who did bad behavior with us? So now the assimilation, the integration of the tribes into the caste system was not universal. ठीक है, तो अब ये हम देख सकते हैं कि ट्राइब्स जिस तरीके से इंक्लूड किए जा रहे थे कास्ट सिस्टम में, द वे दे वर बीइंग मेड पार्ट ऑफ द कास्ट सिस्टम, इट वाज नॉट सेम फॉर एवरीवन. Few people wanted to be a part of it, few people didn't want to be a part of it. People who did become a part of it not necessarily got the higher caste, but a lot of them were in fact put into the lower caste. So these changes were not similar, not universal. It was not the same for everyone. ठीक है. So the ones who got influenced by Islam continued to resist and reject caste system. तो जो लोग अब नहीं चाहते थे सिस्टम का हिस्सा बनना, because they were like, hey, we have to become a low caste only, why to be a part of it, वो इस्लाम का हिस्सा बन गए थे, ठीक है, और वहां से ही रेजिस्ट कर रहे थे. फ्रॉम देयर इटसेल्फ दे वर सेइंग दिस इज नॉट अ गुड सिस्टम, लेट्स नॉट बी अ पार्ट ऑफ इट. ओके. So now here comes your next question. Why didn't tribes in Punjab and Northwest Frontier accept the Jati caste system? क्योंकि वो बुद्धिस्ट थे जो ट्राइब्स थे, बिकॉज वो कन्वर्ट करने लगे इस्लाम में, बिकॉज दे यूज्ड अ डिफरेंट कास्ट सिस्टम, और बिकॉज दे वर क्रिश्चियन. व्हाट वाज द नॉर्थ वेस्टर्न फ्रंट ट्राइब्स हैविंग एज अ रीजन फॉर नॉट बीइंग अ पार्ट ऑफ द कास्ट सिस्टम? ठीक है. बबलू, डू यू नो द आंसर टू दिस? कैन यू आंसर इन द चैट? शिवम, अमन, Gargi, after this topic, we will learn about Gons. Yes, Gargi, we will. Ananya, Bache, can you please help me understand who were you talking about? I failed to understand who were they in your question. Okay, no problem. Okay, guys, let's look at your answers. And we have Andleeb, Dhanush, Sonali, Tanmay, who have answered absolutely correct and perfect timing. Kudos to you guys. Diya, who has answered correctly and in fact very, very fast. हमारे पास अंशिका गार्गी का भी सही जवाब आया है. Wonderful. Arnika has taken an attempt. Ananya and Manasvi have also taken an attempt. Akhil, Mehek, Shreyash, you guys are left to answer. Hi, Shreyash, can you attempt the question? I think I've just joined the session. तो आप एक बार अटेम्प्ट करके देखो. पंजाब के नॉर्थ वेस्ट के पास के जो ट्राइब्स थे वो क्यों का सिस्टम का हिस्सा नहीं बन रहे थे? बिकॉज दे फेल्ट इट वाज नॉट अ सिस्टम विच वाज हेल्पिंग देम आउट. इट वाज डिमीनिंग देम, डोमिनेटिंग देम. Now they started converting into Islam, which was being now introduced by a lot of invaders and a lot of people, travelers who were moving from different areas of the world to India in that portion. अब बात करते हैं गोंड्स की. जैसे हमने पढ़ा अलग अलग बहुत सारे ट्राइब्स, बहुत सारे कास्ट, सब कुछ आ रही थी. गोंड्स बच्चे गोंडवाना में रहते थे. They inhabited Gondwana, practicing shifting cultivation in vast forested regions. So they were the tribe जो shifting cultivation practice करते थे. Now what we need to understand over here majorly is this shifting cultivation. ठीक है, shifting cultivation का मतलब क्या होता है? Shifting cultivation is a type of agriculture practice. ये एक तरीके की farming होती है where you don't have a big piece of land that belongs to you, or you don't cultivate on a big piece of land. You take a small patch of land and you clear it. And where do you take a small patch of land? Basically in the forest. जंगल में क्या होता है? हर जगह पेड़ होते हैं. And mostly the tribals would be on the move. ये ज़्यादातर move करते रहते थे. तो ये क्या करेंगे? एक छोटा सा हिस्सा लेंगे जंगल का, वहाँ से पेड़ों को काट देंगे. They'll clear this out. A small patch of land. Now when they cut the trees, the roots and the stubble will still be left. थोड़ी थोड़ी पेड़ के हिस्से अभी भी जमीन में बचे हुए रह जाएंगे. They'll burn this up. Whatever those small pieces, which is very difficult to take out from the land, they'll burn it. Okay? उसको burn करके in the ashes itself, जो उसकी राख बचती है, जो ashes बचते हैं, in the ashes itself, they will sow the seeds. Seeds को उसी में sow कर दिया जाता है, and then the cultivation happens. So the cultivation is done with all natural methods. Like they will not use additional water or anything. They will be dependent on the land's natural fertility. They will not do any extra addition. They will use very basic old kind of tools. They will depend on monsoon for the rain, nature for the rain, for whatever changes that's happening. इसे shifting cultivation इसलिए कहते हैं that they will do agriculture on this one patch of land that they have cleared for 3, 4, 5 years, and then they will leave it. They will leave it as is to regain back its fertility, because after so many years of cultivation, it would become a little less on nutrients. तो इतने सालों तक लगातार इस पे खेती करने की वजह से ये ज़मीन, ये सॉइल थोड़ा सा अपने न्यूट्रिएंट्स लूज करने लगेगा, थोड़ा इनफर्टाइल होने लगेगा. तो अब इसको खाली छोड़ दिया जाएगा इसकी फर्टिलिटी गेन बैक करके पेड़ों को वापस उगने के लिए. एंड देन द पीपल विल मूव ऑन टू अ नेक्स्ट पैच ऑफ लैंड. सो दे विल क्लियर अ न्यू पैच. अब ये एक नई ज़मीन का हिस्सा जो है वो खाली करेंगे और उस पर सेम चीज़ प्रैक्टिस करेंगे सेम तरीके से. सो व्हाट इज हैपनिंग? दे शिफ्टिंग फ्रॉम वन प्लेस टू अनदर. सो दिस इज नोन एज शिफ्टिंग कल्टिवेशन. ठीक है. सो लार्ज गोंड ट्राइब डिवाइडेड इनटू स्मॉलर क्लैंस, ईच विच इट्स ओन राजा और राइट. ठीक है. सो अब क्या होता है? ये जो गोंड्स थे, दे वर वेरी बिग इन नंबर. सो दे हैड स्मॉल स्मॉल ग्रुप्स विद इन देमसेल्व्स, एंड दीज ग्रुप्स, ईच ऑफ दीज ग्रुप्स वुड हैव वन लीडर. हर एक ये छोटे छोटे ग्रुप जो थे बड़े सारे गोंड्स के, उनमें एक लीडर हुआ करता, तो जो राजा जिसे हम कह रहे हैं. When the Delhi Sultanate started declining, when the Delhi Sultanate started losing its power, a lot of Gond kingdoms began dominating with smaller chiefs. तो ये छोटे छोटे जो ग्रुप्स थे बचे, these small groups that actually existed back at that time, when the Delhi Sultanate started losing its grip, जब उनकी पकड़ कम होने लग गई, राजा का असर कम होने लग गया, तो ये छोटे छोटे ग्रुप्स उभर कर आते हैं और अपनी छोटी छोटी किंगडम्स, दे स्टार्ट क्रिएटिंग their small small area kingdoms with their own heads, with their own leaders, rulers, chiefs. ठीक है. Now they are basically so they are originally and essentially an egalitarian society, a society which is all together, which does not have any division. ठीक है. But gradual emergence of unequal social classes will happen because of the rise of large Gond kingdoms. When normally earlier they did not have any division. They were all one, they all would stay together and would be on the same level. But slowly slowly क्या होने लग जाता है, बड़े kingdoms, बड़ी बड़ी प्रजा बनने लग जाती है, bigger kingdoms start establishing. With the bigger kingdoms, when it starts establishing, the people of those kingdoms, which were basically the Gons ही तो वहाँ रहते थे, they start practicing different occupations, different things. So some of them will become richer, some of them will stay poorer, some of them will be doing the respectable, reputed job, some of them will not. So धीरे धीरे अब social division, economical division will start happening, and Brahmanas will always be there to influence, to always mind wash them that hey, become a part of the caste system, probably follow a caste system. How can you have everyone being on the same level? So with the Brahmanas constantly on the work of influencing them, of rubbing off the caste system on them, trying to convince them, it increased this whole unequal division as they received land grants from the Gond Rajas. So influence of Brahmanas increased as they received the land grants from Gond Rajas. So what are we seeing over here? Two things. First, the Brahmanas are becoming important. Why are they becoming important? Because the Rajas are now basically the higher people. Okay, they're giving money to the Brahmins. When money comes to somebody, first of all, it's like a blessing and also recognition. So the Raja is acknowledging the presence of Brahmins and showing that yes, you're important. So whatever you say will happen. Second, what we see is because they were influential, they had also started convincing a lot of people to fall into the scale of the divisions which existed otherwise in the entire society for Hindus. Now, administration की अगर बात की जाए, if you talk about the Gond kingdoms that existed, the different kind of kingdoms, how did they administer, how did they function, how the government ran? There was a centralized system, which means there was no division of power, there was no center government, state government, local government, no. There was one government at the center and everything in the entire kingdom was controlled by the central government. The kingdom was divided into Garhs. Garhs is basically the basic districts or areas, further smaller areas. Kingdoms बड़े होते हैं ना, एक ही जगह नहीं होती है, उसमें कई सारे जगह होते हैं. There are multiple places, multiple cities. So these cities or further divisions were known as Garhs, which was controlled by specific Gond clans. So let's say there is a one kingdom. This would have various places. These places were basically known as Garhs. And each of these smaller division, each of these Garhs would have their own Gond clans. Because there were a lot of Glons and we understood, right, that they were divided amongst themselves based on whatever slight differences they had with each other. एक दूसरे से जो भी थोड़ी बहुत उनकी डिफरेंस थी, उसके बेसिस पे वो अलग अलग क्लैंस थे. तो जहाँ पे जो क्लैन रहता था, उस गढ़ को वो उसकी देखभाल वो करता था. एंड दे वर फर्दर डिवाइडेड इनटू यूनिट्स. ठीक है, ये जो गढ़ है इसको फर्दर यूनिट्स में डिवाइड किया गया था. वन वॉज योर 84 villages subdivided into barhots, which is 12 villages each. So it's basically going like, let's say there is a Gond kingdom. This Gond kingdom maybe will be divided in, let's say, 8 Garhs or maybe 18 Garhs. कुछ भी मान लो, ठीक है. These 18 Garhs, each of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ऐसे करके 18 जो हर एक division थी, so on and so forth. Each of divisions were further divided in 84 villages. ठीक है. And then these 84 villages were subdivided in barhots and 12 villages. इनके फिर और further हिस्से हुआ करते थे. So that is how the whole system of organization of administration was for the Gonds. So let's now answer this question. How did Gond society change? Became more fragmented, more centralized, more peaceful, or it started growing different crops? Read it very carefully. Read it very, very carefully because there are two things which will cause confusion to you. Fundamental question है, Gond society कैसे बदल रही थी? टुकड़ों में बट रही थी कि सेंट्रलाइज्ड एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन हो रहा था, ज़्यादा पीसफुल हो रहा था, या फिर अलग अलग तरह के क्रॉप्स ग्रो कर रहे थे वो? Anleep, Anshika, Diya, Yatharth, Sonali, perfect, correct answer, perfect timing. Mehak, good job. अवंतिका ने भी सही जवाब दिया है. आर्निका, अवंतिका, खताना, तन्मय, धनुष, गार्गी, मानसवी have taken an attempt. बच्चे, you might be feeling that the Gond system is breaking. What do you mean by fragmentation? I'm sure most of you have answered this. These two are not correct. It might be becoming peaceful. We don't know. We have not discussed about it. Neither we are saying that it was more violent. Maybe it remained as it was. And definitely it's not about the crops. It was being more centralized because the administration is being centralized. Ek center hai and then all of the ruling is happening. Naturally, when you're ruling some place, you cannot rule the entire land by one level. You will have further divisions and all of this will be under one government. There will not be multiple level government like we have in India, right? We have a central government, we have a state government, we have a prime minister, then we have a chief minister also. And there are different chief ministers for each state. That was not the system. They had only one main ruler, the main leader. And then there were further small groups and clans and divisions and villages, right? Fragmented उसको नहीं समझना है. Ultimately, this division was a part of the administration. It was of the same government. Okay. Sonali, whoever was the leader of the tribal group, there always is a leader of group, right? That leader, that ruler of the group would become the Rajput. The others who were not the leaders would not become Rajput. Okay? Now, there were social divisions that were emerging now. I told you, right, based on the economical division, based on the new work that you were doing, social division also started happening, which started with a shift from equal society to one with distinct classes. तो अब जब लोग पहले क्या था, सब सेम काम करते थे, be it the ruler or the other people, be it the leader or the other people of the tribe, everyone was doing the same thing. Agriculture, nature herding, hunting, pastoralism, same kind of things. But now there were divisions, there were people doing different jobs with the kingdoms being formed. अब जब राज्य बन रहा है, सब अलग अलग काम कर रहे हैं. When people are doing different things, they will be economically different. अब उनका economical class, economical level different होगा. And that will naturally start creating differences. Few will be rich, few will not. Few will be doing some jobs that everyone wants to do, few will be doing jobs that people look down upon. अब इसकी वजह से division आने लग जाएगा, so there will be no equality anymore. Everyone is not going to be on the same level anymore. So Gond chiefs sought recognition as Rajputs, adopting titles like Sangram Shah. So the leaders, the rulers, the administrative people, government officials, anyone who was at a high position, जो अच्छी हाई गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल्स थे, वो अपने आप को राजपूत ही मानने लग गए, राजपूत से एसोसिएट करने लग गए और टाइटल देने लग गए संग्राम शाह जैसे खुद को. दे स्टार्टेड कॉलिंग देमसेल्व्स समथिंग लाइक संग्राम शाह. दे स्टार्टेड गिविंग देम, एसोसिएटिंग देमसेल्व्स विद राजपूत टाइटल्स बिकॉज दे वर डूइंग हाई लेवल गवर्नमेंट जॉब. Notable Gond kingdom mentioned in Akbarnama. So Akbarnama is the name of the book. अकबर के रूल के अंडर लिखा हुआ है. वहाँ पे जो एक गोंद किंगडम की बात की गई है, वहाँ पे there were 70,000 villages and wealthy state known for trapping and exporting wild elephants. So it's not like people did not had money with them. These were wealthy people. They would catch wild animals, they would sell wild animals, and that's how they were making money, trading into the animals and the natural things, right? Then Sangram Shah, Aman Das, who was the Sangram Shah, assumed the title of, as you know, and his son Dalpat married the princess Durgavati. So this is one of the famous leaders that we see over here. ठीक है, तो गोंड्स के बारे में हमने बात कर ली है. बाकी दो ट्राइब्स के बारे में और हम नेक्स्ट सेशन में बात करेंगे. ठीक है. बरहौत, सोनाली into Barhot, 12 villages. So medieval India saw the emergence of jatis due to economic growth. Rajputs were there like the Hunas who rose to power, influencing some tribes to join the caste system as well. Tribes did join the caste system. Few places rejected it and in fact adopted Islam. People who did adopt from the tribes the caste system, the leaders became the Rajputs, whereas the others were assimilated into the lower castes only. Gond society in Gondwana shifted from equality to unequal classes as large kingdoms emerged, and the kingdom had a centralized administration system with Gars, Chaurasis and Barhots. Sonari, this is your answer, right? Garhs to Chaurasis and Chaurasis to Barhots. Okay? Chaliye. So we have seen that how the Gond shifted from a loose collection of tribes into a centralized state with hierarchies and caste systems. But what other societies were hiding in the shadow of great Mughal empire? What were they doing? Were same changes happening there? That we'll find in the next session. So, bachcho, please remember that go on the Embibe app website and make sure that you're registered, because now we are doing sessions differently in terms of earlier we would do the session at the same time both on the Embibe app and YouTube. So, you were able to watch it wherever. But now the sessions will happen only at one place at a time. Few sessions will only happen on YouTube, few sessions will only happen on the Embibe app. So just make sure that you go select your 7 CBSE and under home, check out all the sessions that's supposed to happen under Embibe live classes. So for example, this is the session that we are having, right? तो आपको यहाँ पे जाके अपने आप को register कर देना है बस, ठीक है? Get yourself registered. And you can see this is the ongoing class. जो पुराने class हो चुके हैं वो भी दिखेंगे. The upcoming class will also be visible over here. So I'm going to have a full syllabus history revision quiz this week, which is scheduled for you. So please make sure that all of these things you do not miss. Sorry, the quiz happened last week. So ऐसे और quizzes भी आने वाले जो मैं YouTube पे conduct कराऊंगी. तो दोनों वहाँ YouTube के channel को भी subscribe कर लो और app पे भी देख लो ताकि कुछ भी मिस ना हो. Do not forget to check out the Embibe Lens app and stay tuned. So I'll see you guys soon. Till the next time, take good care of yourselves, बच्चों. ठीक है? और मैं मिलती हूँ बहुत जल्द. Till then, have a great evening, have a great time. Hasta la vista, bye bye, ciao. See you soon. Stay tuned and keep imbibing.
Keep imbibing. We believe in you.